Welcome to Spinning Back Clique Retweak here at MMA Junkie. We take a quick spin through the biggest headlines in the sport. This week we've got Nolan King with us, as well as the entire MMA Junkie radio crew of Gorgeous George and Goes. And guys, we had UFC, we had Bellator, we had one championship. So let's not mess around. Let's just get into it. We'll start with one championship. They made their much anticipated primetime debut in the US. And two of the promotion's most familiar names had some rough outings. You had Demetrius Johnson losing, stopped for the first time in his career, and you had Eddie Alvarez, who was disqualified as well. So I want to ask you guys, which one of those results impacted you the most? Let's put 2 minutes on the clock and start with you, George.
Man, I want to answer them both, but all right, to be fair, I would say with the question being who impacted me the most, it had to be Eddie Alvarez. You know, he just took a difficult DQ. He looked great in the fight, but he was able to compartmentalize and as a veteran, keep it together. And the fact that he was looking out for Yuri Lapicus, he was kind of updating us, mentioned that he was going out on a stretcher and he was thinking about him. His voice was shaking. I got to tell you guys, I don't know if it's because I'm over 50 years old or I'm just getting soft, but man, that impacted me. I was watching it going, wow. But bravo, man, you know, keeping it classy, Eddie. You guys can run it back at some point, but that one impacted me the most. How about you, Nolan?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, but for me, it's Demetrius Johnson. As much as Eddie Alvarez's spiel was heart, gut wrenching, and it was a tough thing to watch, clearly emotional. For me, Demetrius Johnson going down in the way that he did, it's just something that until you see it, it's something you imagine. It's something you going into fights, you think about greats getting knocked out. Will this be the one? Will this be the time that we see them go down? And it never doesn't hit me in a weird way seeing a legend like that fold. I mean, when Anderson Silva got knocked out, it was weird. Even Conor McGregor losing to Dustin Poirier, it's just a strange sight. So for me, seeing one of the GOATs go down like that, it's hard for me to pick anything else when something like that happens. How about you, Goes?
Demetrius Johnson, like you said, he's one of the GOATs. So when you see something like that go down, at first you don't even really believe it. But Demetrius Johnson, like we've seen him lose before in the past, but we've never seen him get finished. And I think that's the lasting effect here is now we got to sit back and look back and say, okay, was this an off night for Demetrius Johnson or was Moraes just on point? And we're going to figure that out because these guys are going to fight for sure again. I have to believe it was a great night for Moraes and Demetrius Johnson will be back, but it takes a while to register that fact that the GOAT was stopped in that way.
Yeah, what a crazy couple of results. I imagine. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for one championship. They certainly were getting a lot of headlines out of it, but I don't think you could have possibly scripted that one up. So, listen, also up this past week was Bellator 256, where you had stalwarts like Ryan Bader, Liz Carmouche, Kat Zingano, real familiar names. They all picked up wins. You also had a viral moment, Diana Avsaragova, and some other solid prospect performances in there as well. So I want to ask you guys, what stood out to you most about that card? We'll start with the mayor of the fight sphere. Put 2 minutes on the clock. Nolan, have at it.
Face value, I would say Diana definitely was the breakthrough star when it comes to names that we didn't know. I mean, she was at 0, and now people know who she is. She was trending. But for me, it was Kat Zingano. I mean, she went from her Bellator debut being a little bit underwhelming. She fought an opponent that she was supposed to beat, hadn't fought for a while, and she didn't look particularly great. It was a full decision, unanimous decision. This time around, she goes in there. She looks much better. She gets the armbar right off the bat. She does what people expected her to do. And she positions herself into a title fight, which seems like the direction Bellator is going to go in, according to Scott Coker. So for me, it's Kat Zingano. I think there were plenty of great options. Goes, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I have to agree. It was Kat Zingano. I mean, Kat is so lovable. People love Kat Zingano. If you've seen her in interviews and the things that she does in and outside of the cage, finally everything is starting to click for her. The problem was she's never seemed to be able to get back to the point she was before she fought Ronda Rousey. And we saw how that affected her. And it seems like now she's finally on the right track. And when you attach that name Cyborg, it's a big deal for Bellator because you got to remember, Kat Zingano has that win over Amanda Nunes. So if she could potentially get a win over Chris Cyborg as well, she's going to become a megastar. Who do you got here, G?
I would go with Ryan Bader, man. I was there 9 years ago when he got iced by Lyoto Machida, and then I watched it last year when Nemkov took him out at 37 years old after becoming a champ and being the belle of the ball. I mean, your banner's up there twice at Bellator. how do you come back from that, But he did, and he looked good, and he convinced us, hey, this guy's a player. This guy's up for that $1 million cash prize. He was able to avenge a loss and send a message. He looked great. I thought Ryan Bader responded, a lot. Remember, 2020 was the year of the fighters that are kind of retiring and moving on because they just don't have it anymore. Ryan Bader proved us wrong. He looked great. I can't wait to see him against the winner of Anderson and Diaz.
Yeah, solid choices there from a couple of veterans in Bellator that really made some statements. Okay, lastly, last week, the UFC was in action as well. They were on ABC for the second time, and it was Marvin Vettori picking up a one-sided decision win over Kevin Holland. Now, afterwards, Vettori made it clear he wants the title shot. He wants that rematch with Israel Adesanya. Of course, they have the history together, and he laid out the case for why he deserves it. Anybody, anywhere, anytime. He's been putting on these win streaks. He's the guy that's there ready to fight. So what do you think? Does he have a legit case for being next, especially when you consider the history there? 2 minutes on the clock. Goes started with you.
He has a case, but these things don't really work out in that way. When you think about it, MMA is what? A sport that we've always said is a what have you done for me lately sport. And coming up is Robert Whittaker. And if Robert Whittaker can put on a really good performance, people are going to forget about what Marvin Vettori did because it's just fresh in our mind. It's Cannonier, Till, and then possibly Gastelum, and he's a former champion. How do you deny him at that point? But Marvin Vettori has definitely earned a shot. It just may not be his moment now. He's a gamer, as John said. He's a company guy, and I feel like the UFC may owe him a favor. So I'll tell you this, Robert Whittaker, if you're going to win, you better do it impressively, because if you don't look good in the process, you could get passed for. What are you thinking, G?
Yeah, which is a damn shame because Robert Whittaker is 11-1 as a middleweight, a former champ. Can't ask more from the guy after losing the title versus Adesanya. He's already got a case right now. But Vettori's kind of built up his own case now with the 5-fight win streak, outshining Derek Brunson by one win. Him being the last fighter to come off a win versus the same guy. Man, you would think for sure he's got a shot, but it all depends on this fight coming up with Gastelum. If Whittaker loses or lays an egg, then I think Vettori his case is even stronger. But you never know with the UFC. We'll have to wait and see and see the result of this fight. But he's definitely in the running. At MMA Kings, what do you think?
I got to agree with both of you. I think that if you remove name recognition that Robert Whittaker has over Marvin Vettori, and you remove the history that Robert Whittaker has with Israel Adesanya, I guess that kind of washes out. But to me, look at the bodies of work recently. I mean, Robert Whittaker has beaten Darren Till. He's beaten Jared Cannonier, and he's looked good. I mean, he has an older win over Brunson, too. All those guys are above Marvin Vettori in the rankings. And I'm not trying to discredit what Vettori's done, but to me, even just looking at the last few fights, I mean, Whittaker has gone out there. He's put on really impressive performances against much better talent than Marvin has. It's not Marvin's fault. There's been pullouts. There's been reasons why he hasn't been able to fight the bigger names. But I think Vettori needs one more. If Whittaker goes out there and he wins against Kelvin Gastelum, that title shot is his.
So many great names in middleweight that the UFC can go with. Hopefully one of them will buy Nolan a new stopwatch so we can keep it to the timer there. All right, let's put a speed round on the clock. We talked about Marvin Vettori. How about Kevin Holland? Where does he go from here? This is back-to-back losses, pretty one-sided in short order. What does he do? Let's just do 90 seconds. George, get us going.
Yeah, man, you know what? Take a little bit of time off. He's had a lot of fights in 2020, already two in 2021. But he needs to just pick a fight against a striker, someone who wants to dance. And I would say, hey, Darren Till, things aren't going good in the sporting world up in Liverpool. Them Reds, they ain't doing as hot as they were these last couple of years. How about we figure it out in the fall, me versus you, on one of them weekends when Liverpool is also battling in the Europa League?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that he has to do is to go to a gym that's going to teach him some wrestling, whether it's AKA, which has shown interest, whether it's Sanford MMA, which I know has shown interest. He needs to go somewhere that's going to teach him how to get up. But as far as opponents go, I think get out of the rankings for now. Fight somebody that's a middle ground veteran name, maybe like a Trevin Giles, maybe like a Zach Cummings. Somebody in that range is where he should take that step back, because I think he's going to continue to run into these problems against the best in the division. And Goes, do you agree with me? Do you think I'm crazy here, man?
Well, what I got to say is I don't think he should fight at all, guys. I think, he's probably made some pretty good money here in the last couple months. Pack your bags, change the scenery. It's nothing against your camp now. You just need to change your scenery. You need to immerse yourself in wrestling nonstop for about at least 9 months, I think, and stay off of social media, become a total ghost, reinvent yourself, and then come back and hope that the UFC gives you somewhat of a favorable matchup because he has some holes and he has to address them.
Yeah, solid advice there from Goes. And George dropping the soccer references, just trying to alienate all of our audience, make sure nobody's watching. All right, guys, speaking of UFC champions, Aljamain Sterling, he's going to undergo surgery on his neck. He's going to keep him out for quite some time. Now, Peter Yan has mentioned the idea of maybe stripping Aljamain Sterling. So what do you think? I mean, this has been such a weird, set of circumstances for his belt to even be won in the first place. Should the UFC consider maybe just stripping him and resetting everything? How do we handle it? 2 minutes on the clock. Nolan, start with you.
I don't think stripping him, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think stripping him is the way to go. I know people are angry about the way that the first fight went down, but if we start setting this precedent that the UFC doesn't like how a fight ends, so they're just going to take somebody's title away when they get hurt, to me, I don't think that's the appropriate response to this. I mean, why wouldn't you want to see Aljamain healthy? This isn't something that he just made up. His neck has been bothering him. If you go back and watch old interviews, he talks about it, about how it's a nagging injury. So for me, if I want to see this rematch, which I do, everybody wants to see it. Why not have both athletes be healthy? And to me, man, Aljo's just getting so much hate that I can't fathom why you would strip him of the title at this point in time. Goes, what do you think, man?
I just don't think that a stripping is in order. It's something that you can always do further down the line, but why do it now? I mean, I get it. Neck surgeries are very difficult, and you should anticipate Aljamain Sterling being out for a minute. But, I mean, this is probably the perfect moment to maybe visit an interim title fight or something. Stripping is just so definitive, and it's too early to do that. It's a fight that we all want to see, a rematch. There's so many killers in that division. Maybe set up an interim title fight and let things roll in a positive direction, but stripping is a bad precedent. What do you say, George?
Yeah, I would even say that even interim talk is too soon. It's only been a month. I mean, good thing he's not a matchmaker. He may ask that Ngannou gets stripped for spending too much time hot boxing with Mike Tyson. I mean, settle down, Peter Yan. You'll get your fight. It was unfortunate the way things ended. But yeah, like Nolan said, he's had that nagging injury for a while. I think you want him 100%. Plus, it was a pretty devastating blow to the head that he took. So we've always said, hey, let's give these guys a little bit of time off. Interim, no, let's wait till 9 months. And if there's no fight on the books, then you bring that up. Because at the year point, you want some sort of a direction with the division. But for right now, you just got to wait it out, my friend. But I do want to see you and Aljo running back both show.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I completely understand Jan's frustrations, but I think it'd be way too premature to be talking about stripping Aljamain at this point. Let's see how it all plays out. I do hope we don't have to put an interim belt. That would just make a crazy situation even more weird. All right, lastly, guys, listen, we talked about we talked about Bellator, we talked about UFC. They're all back in action this week as well, but that's not all that's happening. Jake Paul versus Ben Askren goes down this Saturday night, the crazy freak show boxing match, if you will. So let's talk about it. Take a look into your crystal ball. What are the headlines going to be focusing on Sunday morning after this fight? Let's put 2 minutes on the clock. Start with you guys.
Askren, and you shall receive. Paul learns the price of playing with professionals. That's right. This is a professional, a guy who has a lot of fights under his belt. They may not be boxing, but he knows what it's like to get hit in the face. He knows what it's like to be stuck in a situation where you have to dig deep. And I'm not sure Paul knows these things yet. Yeah, he's been in there. He's taken his shots, but it's different being in there with a professional. And guess what? Now is about the time when them butterflies are going to start to sit in his belly. The emotions are going to ride high. And you know what? Ben Askren is a king of getting inside people's heads. I think he's going to make it even worse for his opponent.
Yeah, last weekend, Logan Paul got stunned at WrestleMania, and this weekend, I think Jake Paul's going to get stunned. He's going to get outboxed by Ben Askren. So back to YouTube. Seriously, for maybe an NBA guy that's been retired, all right, I'll give you that. I couldn't do it. Tip of the hat, seriously. And but you mess with the wrong fellas here. And I think you should just stick to YouTube, stick to that type of entertainment. So I don't know. I like my Askren mirror parlay.
I'm going to be the dissenting vote here. I think that we're not going to be happy as MMA people with the headlines that we see come Monday morning. I just have this weird feeling, man, that Jake Paul is going to somehow go out there and do it against Ben Askren. And it will be the headlines will be about who's the next call out. Who did Jake Paul take to the mic and call out? Was it Conor McGregor? Was it Dylan Dennis? Is that going to be a fight that happens? I mean, people are going to debate the frustration that comes with YouTube boxing. And I think we're going to end up in this cycle all over again whenever Jake Paul fights next.
Well, for better or for worse, we will have full coverage of that fight at MMA Junkie. So stick around and find out about it. I got to be honest, I'm intrigued by it as much as I hate to admit it. I can kind of waiting to see what happens. So it goes. By the way, we got to get you in touch with Simon Simano about headline writing, man. You spice things up, man. Well done there. I guess it's going to be another busy week. We said it. April's a crazy month, and it's right back into it. Like I said, Bellator, UFC, this crazy boxing match. It's all going down this week. We'll talk about it all next week on Spinning Back Clique.